Welcome back to a new edition of the Big Red with B. Schneid Show. We're trying something new now. We're going to do a defensive back breakdown with the Nebraska scholarship 105 player limit coming at the end of the summer. They have 28 on the roster. But I wanted to start off, Jim, today talking about Calvin Jones, who passed away yesterday at 54 years old. Used to play for the Huskers. Also, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We're now on the Character Chronicles as well. Are you excited, Jim?
It's kind of fun to turn into a new season and get things going. Got lots of new plans.
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, they were saying that apparently he had a generator running, died of carbon monoxide poisoning is the way it sounds. But I mean, during his Husker career, looking at his statistics, because I never got to watch him play, but he had 3,183 rushing yards, 40 touchdowns, got drafted by the Los Angeles Rams in the third round, played for the Raiders, won the Super Bowl with the Green Bay Packers in 1997, Big A Offensive Player of the Year in 1992. And he only started, I found out, 12 games at I-Back for Nebraska, but he still averaged 105 yards per game. So I thought that was pretty
Um,
impressive.
the, they called him End Zone Jones, and he was a very consistent player, from what I remember. Um, didn't make a lot of mistakes, didn't fumble the ball a lot, and I think was a pretty good person overall.
Well, I remember, looking at old Nebraska highlight reels. How can you forget the touchdown run he had against Colorado, took off his helmet in the end zone. He seemed to be a pretty energetic football player, but obviously I never got to watch him play, but I've seen highlights of him before. And on adding on to that, my mind's going blank for a second, but or I mean that's what Nebraska was I back you back then. You mean you had Calvin Jones probably isn't a top five running back to play at the University of Nebraska, but yet look at the
It was
stats he
year
put
after
up.
year, year after year. It was Calvin Jones. It was Isaiah Moses hip. Most people don't know what I am hip stands for. It was Isaiah Moses. And these were Derek Brown. I mean, that's a kind of an unknown name. Those guys were fantastic running backs. It was one after another after another.
It was the I back you, as they'd say nowadays. I mean, could you
Yes.
imagine if Calvin Jones was on Nebraska's football roster now, how much money he'd be making?
Yeah, a
But
lot.
yeah, I thought we'd cover that. Rest in peace to Calvin Jones. But I wanted to talk about the defensive backs because they brought in some transfers and they're returning four of their five, or no, three of their five starting defensive backs from last year. I guess you could say four counting Sire Wright, since he kind of took over for Tommy Hill with his injury. But Malcolm Hartzog, you have Marquise Buford, and then Deshaun Singleton is going to be able to play next year. It was originally thought he wouldn't with his eligibility, but then the Vanderbilt quarterback, Diego Pavia, put in a waiver that's saying that his JUCO years of college don't count. So now these guys can just play as many years as they want, it seems. So I don't blame Singleton for coming back. He's going to make a lot of money. He's going to be starting at the safety position. But I wanted to talk about the incoming guys. Andrew Marshall from Idaho was first team All Big Sky Conference. He's taller than both Buford and Hartzog. I pencil Marshall in as a starting defensive back with Sayer Wright at the corner positions. Now the question is, what is next for Buford and Hartzog? Because they're also bringing in Justin Rhett from Georgia, has size. He's 6'1". So there's going to be competition, and I just was kind of curious what you're thinking because they have 28 defensive backs on the roster and they have to get down to 105. That's 25% of the roster that they can have, if you think about it, would be defensive backs. I think they're going to have to at least cut 10 players.
I was going to say close to half. Well, welcome to the NCAA's rules. Um, Sorry about that. But in Hartzog, our defensive backs were a little short
Yeah, no, I mean,
in
I've
some
stood,
areas.
as a student, I've had conversations with Hartzog before and stood next to him, and I'm about 5'10" and a half around there. I was round at 5'11" because they do it on the football rosters.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
But
whatever.
but I think Malcolm Hartzog might be pushing 5'8".
Okay, now, but don't ever fault that that kid on effort. He
No, and
put it
I'm
out.
not, but I would not be shocked to see one of the two transfer. Okay, Marquise Buford, he decided to come back for another season. But who's to say after spring ball if these other guys come in and are ahead of him, and same with his brother, who's going to be going into a second season as a Husker. Those two might leave, especially if his brother is buried. They both might just say, "Well, we'll go play somewhere else." I'm not saying it's a
Well,
bad thing. I want the
no,
competition.
we're entering a whole new world here. And it is going to be entirely different in 3 4 years. What with the transfer portals and um, the money that these kids are getting paid. So I don't know.
Well, and also Jameer Khan is coming in. He's another defensive back from it was Southern Illinois is where he's coming from, an FCS school, but they're bringing in all these guys. But you look at here's something to break down. Listen to this. Nebraska on their roster, they have one, two, three, four, six, seven, eight. They have 11 redshirt freshman defensive backs, or
11.
10 of them. I'm sorry, I'm not good at math. That's why I'm doing the
Yeah,
journalism
once you get
major.
above 2 digits, you're in trouble.
Oh, I know. But they're bringing in three. They're bringing in three from high school: Bryson Weber, Caden Vermoss, and then Tanner Turk. So they have three coming in. And that's already added into, so that puts them at 28. And then you look at their sophomores, let's see, they have nine sophomores. Then you have your two juniors. But there's some guys on here that have been recruited or they took a shot on that I don't see them. Thomas Donofrio, Preston Okafor, Evan Taylor, Larry Tarver, Braylon Prude,
Never saw the
Rex
field, did they?
Guthrie. Well, they're going to be going in their third year, but those guys right there, I think they're not going to be on the team. Bryce Turner has never played it down. Jaden Doss, I'm not so sure about him. Ramir Stewart played some. DeAndre Barnes, I don't think so. I think Mario Buford sticks around. The guys that are safe, Caleb Benning. They like Caleb Benning. Of course, his dad played for the Huskers. He's going to be there. Donovan Jones played in the bowl game at corner. He played good. Amari
They
Sanders,
did.
Matt Rule's really high on. I wouldn't, you never know in this world of college football, anything can happen. But I think those guys are
Don't you
safe.
think this? Don't you think this is morphing into something more like roster cuts for the NFL and everything like that? I mean, it's
Absolutely,
very
absolutely.
closely mirroring it.
Well, and who's to say? I mean, some of these walk-on guys, not per se a defensive back, but they're gonna beat out some of these scholarship guys. They're gonna have to tell some of these scholarship guys, well, you're not one of our 105 best players. Sorry. And that's just the way it
There you go.
is. And you also look at now another guy, Jeremiah Charles. Last year, I was expecting Jeremiah Charles to break out a defensive back, and he came in and he got picked apart. You remember UCLA? He started at
Yeah,
corner and he just got picked apart. But I think I do like that they have all these defensive backs for the competition, but it's going to be significantly cut after spring ball.
yeah,
I'd be
has
shocked.
to be.
They still also have Bly Hill, another transfer they brought in last year. He might be leaving. They even had another transfer, as you referenced uh, last month. You were talking about all these guys hopping around like the Easter Bunny. Well, they had a guy committed, and he was in Lincoln for a day, and then went back to Arizona. But he'd been to, I believe, he started at Texas A&M, then he went to Louisville, I believe, and then he went to Arizona. So he was doing kind of that trifecta of every conference, testing it out. Well, he only lasted a day in Big Ten country, so he's going back to Arizona now.
This is going to settle out. We'll see what it looks like in a few years.
Well, they got to tackling was so poor for the defensive backs last year. It was so poor.
Yep,
And I think that,
we lost a couple of games on piss poor tackling
but
by
it
the
is
defensive backs.
exciting because Andrew Marshall can return kicks and punts too, the Idaho transfer. And if you're first team all conference at the FCS level, you can play football.
Right.
And they got height now. And I think that's huge for Nebraska going into what they have.
Right.
But uh anyway, tell us about your yickle in the back, Jim.
Oh, my little buggy.
Is it the
This
Husker
is
edition?
it is, well, it became the Husker edition. I've got red and whites or red and blacks going on it. It's kind of a black shirt edition. It's got a 2.5 liter turbo diesel engine. It's a remake of the CJ3, CJ4 Jeeps. Works out real well out here.
Isn't your tire cover got the black shirts emblem on it?
It does.
That's pretty
It
cool.
does.
The retro one, the retro at
Uh,
the school.
yes.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Stands out down here. Get a lot of attention too, by the way.
Well, there's Husker fans down there.
A lot of closet Husker fans lately. See,
Well,
I paid for this with all the winnings off Husker games.
yeah. What were you breaking down there? Oh, but
I was
before
doing the
we do close
I
it
was
out. Oh, go
I
ahead.
was doing the over and unders, and
Before we do close
so
this
there.
out, I was talking to Jim off the air about this. So I'm in a sports data analytical class, and I was doing a read about it, and somebody had put up they put in the data of Nebraska's turnover margin says from 2004 to 2018. So this is when Scott Frost was head coach going into the second season, and Scott Frost was saying that there was Nebraska underachieved because they had all this talent. But the fact that Nebraska was the worst in the Power Five, I know this is old stats, but you can still apply it to Nebraska today. They've been were better last year, but you think about Matt Rule's first year, the turnover margin was incredible that they won 60% of their games because that you put in analytically, a turnover is about you could factor in about 4 to 5 points per turnover, basically.
Yes,
And the fact that Nebraska was about negative, what was it, negative 80, I think, overall. You think about that, how many more games they could have won, but the fact that they were turning the ball over, I thought they overachieved. I'm not now you talk about roster talent. Yes, they underachieved for sure.
yeah, but roster talent is an opinion. It's not anything that is measurable. It's just an opinion.
Well, don't get me wrong. I mean, we Nebraska's roster talent, I think, going into this year is significantly better than 2 years ago.
Oh, duh.
I mean, you got a quarterback that can throw a football. Now we'll see if he can start
Yes,
scrambling. But anyway, closing out on the defensive backs, this was kind of a quick show we wanted to do, but I think that they're only going to be playing about 7, 8 guys, and don't be discouraged when you see all these defensive backs leaving because that's part of what they have to do.
it is what they have to do, and you can thank the NCAA for that happening.
If there's one guy that you think um is going to really between Buford and Hartzog, who do you think um makes it or is a starter? Because I don't see them both starting next year.
Hartzog leaves.
You think Hartzog leaves? I'm kind of leaning
Yep,
that way too, but we'll see because I would not be shocked to see Buford as well. They're both going to play safety, I think now. They're going to have to because you want that height at the corner position.
right.
But anyway, thank you all for joining us. Be sure to like, share a comment. Who do you guys think will be leaving for the Nebraska defensive backs? I also think, though, Donovan Jones. I would not be shocked to see him in the starting lineup next season, or at least rotating with the defensive backs. You gonna say something
And I'll be golfing at 7:30 in the morning in
tomorrow?
shorts. Yes.
Yeah, Nebraska got over the cold a little bit. It was sub-zero weather for a couple days this week. It was sure fun, but I think hopefully we can stay out of that. But yeah, let us know who you guys think, and check us out on thecharacterchronicles.com. So, and as always,
Cheer
right?
the boys on too. Cheer the boys basketball team on too.
Oh boy, I have an article up
They
on the
need some help.
website breaking that down. So check it out. Uh, Women are doing good though. And we got baseball starting up too. We're going to be covering baseball. We're going to be covering some basketball, but we got baseball,
Got a
softball
lot of
coming
stuff to
up.
cover.
Exactly. So, all right. Thank you all for listening and
Go Big Red.
Oh, there you go. All right.